Hey guys, welcome back to another video. And today we have a ton of huge updates to go over from the Squadron 42 newsletter that gives us a glimpse into some of the ship updates that are coming in Squadron 42 to 4.2 going to Wave 1 PTU and all the features that come along with that, as well as some of the funding updates with Invictus. How was the event? We did make more money than last year. And lastly, I want to talk a little bit about the game growing in popularity. So there's a lot to cover. Let's get right into this video. Starting here with the Squadron 42 newsletter, we have behind the badge the ships of Squadron 42. So this is going to be a huge file with all of the wallpapers of the ships in Squadron 42. Really cool. I'll leave this page linked in the video description below. They sent this out in an email newsletter, so if you didn't see the email in your inbox for whatever reason, again, linked in the video description below. If you guys want to check that out, you can download all those wallpapers here. Really cool wallpapers. And in just a little bit, we're going to go over these wallpapers to kind of see the differences between the ships. I kind of want to compare them, right, to see how they're updating these ships. Then we have kind of like a lore post about one of the characters in Squadron 42. I won't read through all of this, but again, you guys can read this on your own. This is one of the characters in Squadron 42. Then we have this immersive soundscape thing. This is sounds from the Bengal carrier, the Krugeri, the main ship in Squadron 42, Admiral Bishop's capital ship. You can listen to that right there. And last, the souvenir coin for Invictus. This is pretty cool. This is completely free. You can add this to your cart and it will be permanently added to your account. So really cool stuff here on this page. But let's go over now and kind of take a look at some of these ships and compare them to their in-game counterparts. Alright, so the first ship I wanted to take a look at here is the new F7X, right? So this is the newest variant of the F7 series. Of course, we have the Mark 1 and now the Mark 2. This X variant, I guess, is kind of like experimental. So potentially a good basis for a future F7 Mark III, for instance, right? And this is a Squadron 42 ship. I believe this is the ship that Henry Cavill flies in the game in that big intro section that they showed off at CitizenCon last year. And right away you can see stark differences from the Mark II, right? Slimmer nose, the nose turret is further forward, the intakes are more sleek, the wings are thinner, right? These wing tips are much smaller here. The body language is more sculpted and less angular. You can see it's more rounded over, more streamlined. The little winglets at the back here are much smaller. The tail section is more beefy, right? You have more little winglets on the tail section. The turret is smaller. The canopy glass area is smaller. So I have another picture of here, the Mark II here that we can take a look at, right? And so you can see in the Mark II how large these wingtips are, right? These are much larger. This is the old version of the Mark II, but the body lines are the same. You can see the nose here, how much bigger this is, as well as the glass for the canopy, right? The glass for the canopy, it goes very far down the sides of the front of the ship in front of the intakes, right? But on the F7X, the canopy is much smaller, right? With the intakes over here, the canopy on the Mark II would come all the way down here. And right, if you look at this photo of the canopy, this is the seat in between these two lights, right? So all of this glass, this is just the dashboard that surrounds the pilot. So all this glass is kind of unnecessary, right? You have the intakes here that are massive, but the glass is taking up the whole side of the top of the ship. Where on the X7X, the glass is just over where the pilot is sitting. So it's a little bit more efficient in that way. Then of course you have I guess these are cameras and different things at the front of the ship. I'm not entirely sure, but they look really cool kind of compared to, you know, the Mark II just having the hole in the front as another intake, right? But then you have these winglets here, these much larger winglets, and these much larger winglets at the back that, again, you don't have those much larger winglets at the back, and you don't have the winglets up here at the front, right? So the design seems to be more aerodynamic with the F7X than the Mark II. So one of the things that I think is kind of nice to have is this this livery. This livery looks really cool on the F7X. So I think it would be cool if CIG gave us this livery if we completed Squadron 42. I know they said in the past that if you complete Squadron 42, you'll get an F8, but there are many people who already have an F8, so just having an F8 doesn't really mean that you've completed Squadron 42, right? You could have just bought it. But by having this skin, anybody who saw someone flying around with this skin, they would immediately know that that player completed Squadron 42. And I think it would be kind of more of a nice thing to have, right? And it would be an easier thing to give players this skin than, you know, having players have to go and buy a whole F8, right? Because I think completing Squadron 42 gives you an opportunity to buy an F8. I'm not entirely sure what their plan is now moving forward, but I think it's a really cool skin, and I think it would be easy to have. Again, they don't have to make it exactly like this skin, just like the same colors, right? With the gold and the black and the blue and the red, same colors. You know, but it would fit the Mark II basically. All right, so now I wanted to take a look at the Gladius. So a lot of people pointed out about this ship model with the Gladius, the differences here, and you could see the guns are kind of much closer to the wingtips than it is in the game right now. In the game right now, the guns are kind of like right around here, right? So the placement of the guns on this version of Gladius is a lot more similar to the placement of the guns on the old model of the Gladius, and I'll kind of show you that right here too. So this is the old Gladius model, and you can see here the old guns, they're very close to the wingtips, but the wingtips are different. You can see this kind of like step down angle, whereas in Squadron 42 the wingtips are more swept back like in the current model of the Gladius. As well as the nose here, it doesn't have the headlights, but it looks like it has some kind of blocker plate, so they might be using the same model, but the model has like a different part on it. The old Gladius does not have those headlights, and the current in-game model, you could see there, has that part at the front, but again, swept back wingtips. But the guns are much closer to the body, whereas Squadron 42 version, the guns are further on the wingtips. Now the canopy is the same. The old model of the Gladius has this split canopy because it had a very different MFD layout. As you can see here, the MFDs are a lot smaller than it is in the current iteration. The current iteration with the MFDs on either side of the pilot like that, it looks more similar to this. But again, these MFDs have this little cutout here in the middle, right? Whereas the current in-game model, they just go straight, right? The MFDs just go straight down. So the cockpit in the Squadron 42, you can see here it goes down, but then it cuts in and kind of makes this swooping. So even the cockpit is different in the Squadron 42 Gladius than it is with the current in-game one. Now it's very different from the old model as well, but the main thing that is similar with the old model is the placement of the guns. But I think that the new Gladius model looks really cool with this skin, especially the black and the red. I think that looks really awesome. What I want to take a look at is the F8. Of course, this is I would say the biggest departure from the current version of the F8, because the current version of the F8 has a lot more angles here with the wings that kind of fold in and out, and of course the nose here, the both sides of the nose that kind of fold in. It's a lot sleeker with just one body line continuing from the front of the ship to the wingtip. And you can see here it has split wingtips, and the engine placement at the back is very different as well. We know the F8 has all those engines at the back. This looks like it just has 3 main ones. And all the turrets again look smaller. It's kind of the big thing about these ship differences, is that it looks like these ships have smaller guns, right? So why would CIG do that? You don't really need to worry about balancing a ship in a single player game unless you planned on releasing those ships to the PU, right? So these ships look sleeker and faster, more maneuverable, that is. And to kind of off balance that, it would be it would make a lot of sense to downsize the guns. The ship is more maneuverable, so don't give it as guns that are as big. So again, you look at these guns on the F7X and they look much smaller. They're definitely not size 5s, but it looks like you have 2 size 3s on the wings, 2 size 3s on the nose, and then 2 size 3s on top. So 6 size 3s versus 4 size 3s and 2 size 5s. But it looks like it's more maneuverable. So that could be a way CIG would try to balance it. And again, I think the only reason why CIG would try and balance it is if they planned on, adding these ships to the game. Now, major differences with the Idris as well. You can see here with the main engines and these engines in the front, the more angular. And so what happens is that when the Idris P went to the Persistent Universe, players realized that the engines don't rotate for VTOL mode, and that might be to kind of put the ship more in line performance-wise with this one, because essentially what CIG said is that when Squadron 42 comes out, they will make this version of the Idris available to players. So right now, we're playing with the old version of the Idris P, and they're going to update it. Another thing that will probably get added in that update are the gimbals for the turrets. CIG might update that before then, but I think that was all part of the old model of the ship, might have not had it. But it kind of looks like here, this is like a VTOL thrust or something. This at the back, this looks like, a bottom mounted turret. Then you have those turrets at the front, but this is a very strategic angle, right? They're purposefully not showing the top of the ship, and it makes me kind of wonder, it makes me kind of think, if what have they redesigned about the top of the ship that they want to kind of keep a secret until Squadron 42 comes out. Again, very strategic angle. It does show the redesign of the engines, so they're not hiding that from us, but they're specifically not showing us the top of the ship. So let's look at this other picture here as well. So this is a very strategic angle. You can see the whole front of the ship here, the front of railgun, the nose gun there. You can even see the main engines at the back. But one thing that you cannot see at all is the bridge. So it kind of makes you wonder, did they do some kind of redesign with the bridge of this ship? Now, very interested to see what this ship looks like in Squadron 42. You guys know that I am very excited to play that game. That game looks awesome. So, yeah, all good looking stuff. Now, let's go over and talk about the updates that are coming to Alpha 4.2 PTU Wave 1. Alright, so we're here and we're looking at the roadmap update to kind of condense all of the updates that are coming in 4.2, right? And so you guys have probably seen some of the footage on Reddit and YouTube now for the rain. It looks awesome. So we're going to talk about here all the stuff coming. So new creatures, right? many people are saying that this is the irradiated adult Valakar and Apex Valakar. So in PTU right now, if you go to some of the Pyro locations, you will find these Valakar that are larger than the adolescent Valakar that can be found on Daemon, right? And they like spit toxic stuff at you. So it's not like a one shot, one kill thing. These toxic things don't kill you immediately, but I think maybe the intention is that this irradiation, poison or whatever kind of kills you slowly. Not entirely sure, but so far that is what I think the main creature is gonna be. But it says multiple new creatures to the verse. And this card has been set to tentative, so I'm not entirely sure what other creatures they're gonna be. I know I have seen that there is what looks like a Valakar egg, right? Where you can see little baby Valakar kind of moving around in it. So maybe that's another, thing that can be there. Then we have new hairstyles. Again, I think these are 4 new hairstyles. They are, kind of like more realistic hairstyles because early on CIG kind of made fun hairstyles for the players to mess with. But I think they want to have some of the character creation options be, something that players can use to make the character look more like themselves in real life. So I think that's very cool to see. Then we have radiation, implementing dangerous radiation zones in specific locations, forcing players to adapt with specialized gear and strategic navigation. So basically, there are bad storms in Pyro, so you can't fly your ship all the way. You have to take some kind of shuttle. I'm not sure if that's strictly because of radiation or because of the storms, but these zones are going to be areas where you're going to need a specialized suit, which we'll talk about a little bit in a minute. Then the ASD research facility. These are strategically located on Pyro 1 associated science and development facilities that provide essential infrastructure and sandbox gameplay opportunities. So what people have basically been saying about these locations, I believe, is that you kind of go there and you're kind of open to do the content, right? Instead of just being purely mission locked. But it's seeming like these are kind of becoming PvP hotspots with players kind of camping them right now. And again, this is Wave 1 PTU. But so far, it kind of sounds like players have been just kind of going there to, see what's going on. And I'm not entirely sure how CAG is going to kind of open up that bottleneck there. Because again, whenever a bottleneck is created in the game, any player's first thought is, I'm going to try to cap this location. So we'll see how they kind of alleviate that. Then we have ASD data center strategically placed on Pyro 4. Associated science and development data centers are providing key infrastructure and sandbox gameplay opportunities. Again, these locations kind of take parts kits, I guess, from the Good Doctor map a little bit. Then we have sandbox activity, adding a sandbox activity and mechanics. Again, I think the sandbox activity again relates to the ASD centers. Then we have the Argo Atlas IK-TI. Now, this is a kind of a weird vehicle for me personally. They've updated the hangar lifts so you can now get these in your cargo elevators instead of ship elevators or anything like that, or ground locations, which is really nice. But this mech suit is it's really slow right now. There are a few bugs with it. Some animations aren't fully in yet, which is fine. Again, it's PTU. It's something that they should work out before launch, and it seems like they want to get this in players' hands so they can kind of test it and make sure that it's good to go. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't really see it having a real combat role right now, um, again, you could probably take it to these ASD locations and try to, shoot people camping. It might offer a little bit more protection and give you a little bit more firepower. Um, but maybe that situation might be better for some like an MTC. I'm not really sure what the right niche is for this mech, right? Right now it does not have jump thrusters, so it's just really slow, and that just makes it a huge target, right? If players walking around with guns can hide better, the more agile, the smaller targets, they don't have the same firepower as this thing. But we're really gonna have to see how it plays out. Um, Now I don't know if they're gonna sell this thing or if they're just going to, make it an in-game thing. I know a lot of people were saying initially when they released the Atlas, they hoped that CIG would make it an in-game thing. But it is an interesting vehicle. I think it definitely needs jump thrusters. Otherwise, it's just gonna be too slow. Then we have the Wicklow special ships. This is adding new multiple ships and vehicles to the ever expanding Wicklow's Emporium. These are going to be pretty cool. Again, a way to earn something through gameplay. I really like to see that because it just brings more players to the game. Then we have the Vault Laser Shotgun. This gun kind of feels a little bit overpowered. It's a very cool gun. But again, it's one of those things that if they're kind of hard to obtain, they might be kind of cool, right? So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, if the ASD locations are kind of these PvP hot zones, and you have players with these Volt shotguns, and you have players with the Atlas IKTIs, kind of walking around, it could get interesting. And people are already making memes about the PvP gameplay like CIG always adds. I think it could be a lot of fun. Maybe not for me, but we'll see. Then we have the Stirling Exploration Suit. Um, yeah, this is just a big suit, radiation damage, um, heavy utility armor built to withstand extreme radiation. Yeah, this looks like a giant hazmat suit. Very cool stuff. Dynamic rain. This is the big one that everyone has been excited about. Again, it's dynamic, so it's not just rain where there are clouds. The clouds are moving over the planet, and it's really cool to see and hear. And it affects your character as well. It makes everything wet. It makes the ground wet. Your player character, the clothes, your ship. Um, I think it's a really good first implementation. You can see a little bit of thunder in different locations. Honestly, it reminds me of what they showed at CitizenCon last year, and for them to go from that to getting it in our hands, in a couple of months is a good sign that engineering is, engineering and different features can be done at reasonable pace when the devs, put their heads down. And of course, right now they're trying to get Squadron 42 over the finish line, so it might take a little bit longer, but I really appreciate it. Then new combat space missions and new medium utility armor. I haven't really seen anything about this yet, but adding new legendary medium utility armor. This terminology, legendary, I don't know. It's just one of those things that I think that I'll believe it when I see it. So that is the update to 4.2, and again, this is in Wave 1 PTU. So if you have Wave 1 PTU access, go ahead and download that. You can start testing out all this stuff. Now I want to go over to the Invictus funding tracker and take a look at that. All right, so we have the Invictus funding results here, so graciously assembled by Greg Red. And again, I will leave all of the things that we're looking at in today's video linked in the video description below, so you can take a deeper look at it for yourselves. So we have the daily and total sales here. The total funds raised, $23,800,000. A lot of money, more than raised last year. And we could see each day specifically here, 4.4 on the first day. This was Aegis Day, so a lot of this money came in from the Idris. And again, the following days, much less, 1.9, 1.8, 1 million, 2.1, right? This was the TAC, Starlance attack. And then day 9 at 4 million. Day 11 at 2.5. This is Drake Day. A lot of people try to get the crack in. One of the things that I think was most interesting about this Invictus was day 5. I really thought that the Starlance attack would be more popular with, you know, the vehicle bay, the cargo, the med bay, the jump seats, the gun turrets, the Fury hangar, the, you know, more sensible crew layout with the bathrooms and stuff. Like, you still have the full kitchenette, you still have the full kind of picnic bench dining table, you have 2 bathrooms, right, instead of, you know, en suites, but you have the, you know, the gun racks in there, and the escape pods, the armory up at the front with all the suit lockers. The TAC has a lot to offer. Another large shield, but the biggest downside, I would say, with the ship is the gun firing arc of those 2 side turrets. That's one thing. And then the second thing is the speed and maneuverability. Now, obviously, that can be rebalanced in the future, but seeing kind of the nerf CIG has done on other ships, I think with this ship, they try to kind of nerf it in advance, right? So they don't have to go back and make it worse later on, because that would be like a bunch of big uproar from the community. I think they said, okay, let's make it as slow as we can possibly make it, and then maybe in the future make it faster. I'm not saying that they will make it faster in the future, but it really does feel a little too slow and heavy, and not really the best you know, performing ship for, you know, some of the things that players want to do with it. Yeah, but it really didn't make that much more than, you know, the RSI and day 2 of Aegis. So I would say people who did get it probably got it with store credit instead of new money. Again, it's even less than Drake Day, and I think Drake Day really did so good because of the Kraken, right? People wanted to try to see if they can get those limited hull ships before it goes up in price when it goes straight to flyable. But again, the Asgard was a big surprise for me. But I mean, it really is just a better Valkyrie, but that's really what people want, right? You could see it right here. It made almost as much as day 1 Idris sales. A ship that has good guns, decent maneuverability, good cargo, logical layout, right? Some creature comforts, but not, you know, full bedrooms with a double bed. You know, players don't really need that. It's not going to get used. But yeah, you can park any vehicle in the game in the ship, and it has a lot of cargo, and it has good shields. And again, maneuverability. It's just, people was calling it a better Cutlass, right? It's just like, I mean, for me personally, I think the price kind of puts it out of that conversation, right? If that's really what you want, I would say kind of go for a Corsair, right? You know, this is still $350 versus, you know, $250 Corsair, or, you know, even a Taurus, right, with those 4 size 5s. I think that price wise, the ship is pretty expensive for what it is, but it is delivering what I think the average solo player wants, right? So I think that's why it was so popular. It's just a good solo ship, you know. And at the end of the day, the price kind of doesn't matter if it's a good solo ship, because that's what people want. And you can see here the price scale going up. So Invictus 2955 was a success. You can see it compared to last year. This year, 23,800,000. Last year, 19,600,000. So we made significantly more than last year. And it really comes down to that big day one with the Idris, that big day nine. Day nine was actually pretty close in price to last year. Last year made 3.7 million. This year made 4 million. But it's all the other days that really outperformed the other days from last year, right? Actually, day 5 with the TAC actually made less than day 5 last year. And if you look at some of the ships that were released last year, not as exciting as this year. So very cool to see. And last, before I close out this video, I kind of wanted to talk about Star Citizen in kind of the greater picture, right? The popularity of the game. So I wanted to kind of go over to Google Trends and kind of take a look at that. So if you guys don't know, Google Trends is a website that you can go to kind of compare analytics, search term analytics on Google with different things, right? So it's kind of an interesting way to gauge the popularity of something, right? It isn't completely accurate, but again, in terms of search terms, you could kind of see where players are. And I wanted to compare 4 games here, the main space games that people think of. Star Citizen, of course. Starfield was very popular when it came out on the scene, right? Then No Man's Sky. For many people, this is the dream space game. And of course, Elite Dangerous. Elite Dangerous for many years was going back and forth with Star Citizen. And you can see here in this chart that Star Citizen is this blue line, Starfield is the red line, No Man's Sky is this orange line, and then this green line down here is Elite Dangerous, right? And so this chart is for the last 30 days. And obviously, Star Citizen had just finished Invictus, so it is massively popular at the moment. And I think that's kind of a good thing for the game, right? For it to be so much more popular right now in terms of search terms than Starfield and No Man's Sky, it's kind of unthinkable, right? So we go out, right, to the past year to see what this chart looks like. And you can see here, No Man's Sky is this yellow line. It's massively popular, massively more popular than Star Citizen. Again, Star Citizen is this blue line here, right? And this red line is Starfield. So when Starfield, came out, very popular, you know, very similar to No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky has these big peaks whenever they release a content drop because they're free. Very cool for the, developers to do that. But then again, you can see here, Star Citizen is pretty close to Elite Dangerous, going back and forth. Of course, I believe, back here it had the end of Fleet Week, so it was pretty close in popularity to Starfield, and it was actually more popular than No Man's Sky at that point. But then No Man's Sky had a new release. I believe this was Worlds or something like that, and boom, massively popular, massively searched, and then Starfield. But Starfield has slowly been going down over time. And right now, there's no new content for No Man's Sky. But of course, if No Man's Sky has some big content drop, it'll probably spike back up again. And then Elite Dangerous down here, FDev has been doing a lot of different things over the past year and now. And, you just haven't been seeing those spikes, right? It's just basically a straight line all the way across. So to me, that kind of says that the player base is just gone for good, right? If you see a game have these big spikes, it means that players are coming back to check out the game and play the new content and stay for a while. But when you see a line that's this flat, flatline, no pun intended. It just means that players aren't coming back to check out the new content in any, meaningful way. Because this line is as flat as it gets, right? And again, Star Citizen's line is pretty flat. Again, you can see the peaks here. October, you can see like around Citizen Con and IAE, the end of December, and then now you got another big peak for Invictus. So the old Invictus, then you have IAE, and now you have the new Invictus. But this new Invictus was, more popular than IAE was, than CitizenCon and IAE was last year. It was this Invictus. So this Invictus, in my personal opinion, very successful. And again, in terms of money, this Invictus made about the same amount of money as IAE last year. So I think that now, again, if CIG keeps their foot on the gas, they focus on, maintaining the game's playability, they might have a real winner on their hands, attracting players to come in and actually play the game. Again, I've said it before, playability is at the core of this game's success. If people can get in and do the content, then there's a lot here to like about Star Citizen. Now CIG just has to capitalize on it. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I know we covered a ton of stuff in this video. I kind of just crammed everything together and threw it at you guys. I appreciate if you guys made it all the way to the end of this video. Thanks for hanging out with me again. So like I always say at the end of these videos, you guys, like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Salute.